And welcome in everyone to the DFS Tailgate, the internet's 69th most popular DFS and betting show on Sunday mornings here. Nice. I am Seth Woolcock, joined by our good friends of the show, Conor Coughlin, aka the Cough Master, and Bo McBigtime. Old Bo McBrayer hanging out there, chilling out in Cali. Bo, I want to start with you. We didn't have you last week. How are you feeling this week?
I feel much better. I actually got some sleep last night, so I was healthy, not diseased like last week. When late weekend was just bad all around. I'm healthy. I'm ready to go. Got a full cup of Irish coffee waiting for me. Let's go.
Let's
go. You look well.
You do. Thanks, sir. You got that nice IBT t-shirt on right now. Conor, how are you feeling, our friend? You've been a weekend warrior this entire fall season. Were you a weekend warrior once again here yesterday?
I had a few drinks. I had a couple. No, I'm doing well. My IBT shirt, I keep saying this, it must be in the mail. It's
in the mail, baby. It's in the mail.
The postal service.
So guys, before we do jump in here on the DFS Tailgate, I did want to make a special announcement for Tim, Albert, everyone who tunes into this show regularly every Sunday morning. We want to best serve our community here. We want to best serve the people who want our DFS and betting advice. And to do that, we figured, after kind of looking back at the analytics, that the best way to do that was make this show earlier in the week, and also change the platform a little bit. So we're officially going to be, after this week, we're going to be shifting the DFS Tailgate to Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And that'll be over on Twitter Spaces from the IBT account. Our guy, Dave Stewart, he's going to host the show. Conor, Bo, and I and some other panelists will join every single week to give you our advice. Guys, I'm looking forward to this. I love doing this on Sunday mornings with you guys. But at the end of the day, we want to best serve this community. And Conor, I think this is the way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll give some people some time to rewatch, maybe some time just to watch in general, and get some lineups set and kind of work through the week. And we'll do our best to guide you through who may or may not play. And but I think it's going to be fun. I think it's a good change.
Absolutely, guys. I 100% agree with you. Bo, I want to start with you, man. How do you feel about this slate this weekend? Because we got 6 teams on bye. It's not a super sexy slate, if we're being honest. The 4:00 window could use a little juice. But how are you feeling it overall? Do you have one matchup in particular that you love for betting, DFS, or just general fantasy purposes?
I have a few leans this weekend. What I always like to say with DFS is, if the main slate is smaller, we're going to win, because that's kind of what removes a lot of the crapshoot aspect of it.
Okay.
You get the showdown slate, you might get duplicated a couple times on a winning lineup. An optimal lineup might be shared by a bunch of people, but it's almost unheard of, unless you're going super chalky, to do that on a main slate with 11, 12, 13, even 16 games. You have all these games and so much variability. As the slate constricts, we have a much better chance of hitting the nuts without being duplicated. So it's like kind of a happy medium for me is when the main slate's only 10 or 11 games, like 10 today. I think that we're going to have some extremely high likelihoods of hitting big paydays.
Okay. So Bo is feeling confident. Conor, do you feel equally as confident with this smaller slate this week?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's easier on a smaller slate like this to isolate the good plays, and so I think that's probably the key, is first narrowing it down to exactly who you want to target, but then looking for the smaller, lesser known pivot plays just to differentiate a little bit, because on a smaller slate, I mean, it's definitely going to get a little chalky. So you're going to need a little bit of differentiation somewhere.
Okay. Awesome. Well, to run you guys through this, how we're going to go about it today, we're going to do over-unders and against the spread. Some of my picks for that, we'll talk about those. Then we'll run through these fellows' prop bets, where they're getting them, what the market's looking like out there for them. And then, of course, we'll break down the DFS slate over on DraftKings as well. So, guys, I want to start by just talking about what an absurd line I thought Vegas had out on the Vikings all week. 3 points to the Commanders was just absurd. Right now, over on DraftKings, they just bumped it up in the last 5 minutes, I'm seeing, because I just placed some bets right before the show, and they've already changed since then. It's now a 3.5 line at Washington. And I get Washington's been frisky, man. Like you can't doubt Taylor Heinicke. He's been a good quarterback here for them, giving a little bit of juice to that Dan Schneider mess of an organization. But still, at the end of the day, with Kirk Cousins coming home with this Vikings offense that is seemingly unstoppable, Connor, this seems like a no-brainer that I have to take those points, whether it's 3 or 3.5. I don't care. I want the Vikings here.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board. I don't get it. I mean, I don't think the Commanders are complete trash, but I definitely don't think that they're anywhere near winning this game. I mean, I think the Vikings win this by at least a touchdown, if not two, going away. And I think the key for the Vikings today is just being able to be productive in the second half, a little bit like they started doing last week. And that's the challenge, right, with the Vikes, though. And if they don't do anything in the second half, then yeah, I mean, this can go upside down quick.
Well, are you kind of on that lean as well? Because I just don't think this Commander secondary can keep up with Jay Jet and the boys out there.
Well, I mean, who can? And the Vikings only have one loss this year. Like everybody wants to say, oh, they're okay this, they're okay that. Well, they're winning games. The new head coach Kevin O'Connell is doing a great job of covering up a pretty piss poor defense. They've been playing good enough to get the offense back on the field. And whenever you see number 18 running wide open on every play, and it's just up to Kirk Cousins to pull his head out of his butt and find him, that's their whole key to winning is feed Dalvin Cook, feed Justin Jefferson, and the rest just sorts itself out because you got to feed your best players, and that's the O'Connell thing is they're just funneling the ball to Cook and to Jefferson every game, and well, what do you know? When you feed your best players, you win ball games, and the Commanders have been the opposite of that. It took a J.D. McKissick injury for them to feature their best player on offense, which is obviously Antonio Gibson. Every time the guy gets on the field, he's making big plays through the air and on the ground. And now through injuries, that's the only thing that kind of gives me pause is that the Commanders with Gibson and McLaurin and now a healthy Logan Thomas, this offense, even with Heinicke, can put up some points. And Heineke's due for 2 to 3 turnovers every game, but he also has some weaponry out there that could cause some fits for the Vikings. If they can't get off the field on defense on third downs, it could be a lot closer. But I'm going to bank on the Vikings being a better coach team and a better led team. And of course, you're not betting against Justin Jefferson. Come on, guys. This guy's ridiculous. He is one of the best receivers of the era. And we're talking like last 10, 20 years that he's that special and he's just getting started. So I can't wait to watch the Vikings smash the Commanders or whatever they want to call themselves this year, because that's kind of what I'm all about is just like watching Dan Snyder's sell-off value go down. That would be the next best thing is now that he's finally selling the team, watch the value plummet because they suck.
So I'm with you, Bo. Maybe the books are trying to trap us on this line, but I'm still willing to take it. Let's move forward to my next bet, and I am taking Miami right now. They are a 4-point favorite against the Bears, and I get that the Bears at times have been better as of late on offense, but it's more about the defense that I do not think can contain Miami here. They just lost Roquan Smith. That's a huge loss leadership-wise on the defensive side as well. And guys, Tua has been great this year. He has a 112 quarterback rating, one of the best quarterbacks in the league while he's healthy. And this Bears defense with Roquan last week, they gave up 49 points to Dallas. Connor, you were kind of all over that before that game started. I'm here with it, man. I think adding Bradley Chubb to this defense for Miami as well, he's going to get after Justin Fields a little bit as well. So 4 points, that's another line I just don't feel like it's big enough for me. Are you on this with me, Connor?
Yeah, definitely. And Miami just continues to perform, and not just one player individually. I mean, both sides of the ball seem to be really coming together. This is a team to be afraid of, I think. And I think this line may be a little bit reflective of a little bit of an uptick in performance on Justin Fields' side, but I think this game is a massive blowout. And I'm not a Justin Fields truther by any means, so I like the Miami side of this.
Bo?
I'm going to take the Chicago side of this because of the weather. The weather is pretty nasty today, very high winds. So Tua already has big question marks around arm strength, and arm strength really doesn't matter for quarterbacks until you start to see inclement weather where timing and everything really goes into play. This Dolphins team hasn't always been able to run the football very well. And the Bears have. The Bears have 4 games this year with over 230 rushing yards. And the Dolphins on defense have not been good against the run or the pass. They've just been able to get their offense to outscore the other team, which is very possible to happen. But I'll take the Bears here. I'll take the 4 points.
Okay.
I think it'll be a close game, a little bit lower scoring. Maybe a field goal difference. That's kind of how I see this one going. Just the weather, keeping things close to the vest, not taking as many shots down the field to Tyreek and Waddle, because that's their whole offense. 60% of their targets go to those 2 receivers.
I will say, though, on that note, just quickly on Tyreek, though, in the beginning of the year, I mean, his average depth of target was pretty shallow. And so I still like Tyreek to – no, it hasn't been. But I'm just saying, like, the adaptive nature of the offense to be able to get Tyreek the ball in short distance.
Yeah. I definitely think there's a very big possibility that those short little routes that they run where they just let them yak it up with 2 of the fastest guys in the league, those still work. And this Bears defense is really bad without Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn on it.
Yeah. I'll round us out here, guys. And this one might be a little bit of a controversial pick, but I'm going to take the over on the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs game. And this is just how these offenses line up for me. The Titans, they have one of the worst secondaries in the league. They've been exposed time and time again by quarterbacks and wide receivers. We don't know who's going to be quarterback here for the Titans. I think that is the one question mark I have. However, I don't think it matters that much for me because the Chiefs have been so darn bad against running backs. So I think Derrick Henry's going to have a big game. I think he can at least score 14 to 20 points for the Titans. And I think on the other side, Mahomes dialing up against this Tennessee defense, I like it a lot, man. I know it's like the Titans have not been an over killer this season. I think they're 2-5 against the over. But the Chiefs have been. So I'm going to ride with the Chiefs here, really banking on them, and then Derrick Henry for the Titans to kind of pick up the lack of offense over there. Bo, do you have any hesitance against this? It's definitely a little bit riskier of a bet than the first 2, but I'm on it here.
So my lock of the week is actually in this game, and it's that the Titans are going to cover that ridiculous 12.5-point spread.
Yes. Yeah.
That is the most ridiculous spread I've ever seen between 2 teams with the same damn winning record. They're both 5-2 teams. They both have strengths and weaknesses. The Titans, where their secondary is weak, their pass rush is nasty. Like, we're talking nasty pass rush. They stuff the run. So that I think that the Chiefs come out here one-dimensional, they can get beat by the Titans. We've seen Mike Vrabel pull out these types of games all the time in the past. So 12.5 points is an insulting spread to the Titans. I do think it's going over, but not by much. That's not the line that I want to touch on in this game. I can't remember the last time I saw a double-digit spread in prime time between 2 winning teams.
Yeah,
especially when the Chiefs haven't been dominant. They've scored a lot of points, but they have not been dominant this year.
No, and almost everybody they've played so far, like the defenses just in general are getting to Mahomes. Like, he's getting forced out of the pocket, which he's good out of the pocket. There's no problem there. But they're getting after him, and he is making some kind of stupid mistakes. And quite frankly, I think just getting a little too fancy with it sometimes. So I think that spread is ridiculous. The over under too, like, just to put it out there, I know a lot of times we work off of DK, and DK's got it at 46, and it kind of keeps fluctuating back and forth, but kind of across the board, almost everywhere else, you can get it at 45.5. And I like that even a little bit better. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it pegged as a 48 game. So I would lean towards the over, but I'm hammering that Titans side of the spread hard. That is my lock of the week, is the Titans covering.
Okay. I might have to factor that in. Definitely something to consider here up until kickoff. Connor, want to throw it to you now with some of our prop bets. What are you seeing? What market are you looking at? And what's the overall vibe heading into this?
So just player props per normal. This week I am doing a regular one instead of fantasy. I'm looking at that Miami Chicago game, actually, and just a little 3-legger. The first one in there is Jalen Waddle, over under 5.5 receptions. I'm actually going to take the over there. I do hear what Bo's saying with some of the weather being a little bit of a concern, but Waddle's consistently getting fed the ball, and regardless of the depth that they're throwing at, they're going to have to pass the ball a little bit in this game. And I like Waddle, especially coming off of a pretty good game. So Waddle at 5.5, I'll take the over there.
I like that number, Connor. I am just a little bit concerned that he's only hit that number, I think, 3 times this season. So I guess that's what you're playing into. But like I said, I'm not scared of the Chicago Bears defense. And if it is a lot of these quicker, shorter passes, I think there's a better chance he hits there. So I'm all right with that one there.
The next one's David Montgomery, over under 53.5 rushing yards. I am going to take the over. And generally speaking, Montgomery has been able to get around 54 to 62-ish yards, I think, when he's been healthy and been used. I like him better just as a straight up running back option in bad weather. I know Khalil Herbert's going to get some play, but I do like that David Montgomery at 53.5 over. I don't think he blows it away, but I do think he ends up being over.
Bo, how do you feel about that one? You're kind of shaking your head down there. He has hit this line in at least four of his last 5 healthy games. So are you all right with that?
Well, the Bears have been able to keep it relatively close, and that's where Monty is good as in a neutral to positive game script. Unfortunately, I think if you're going to harp on the narrative that the Dolphins are going to win this game easily, then I would probably lean towards the under. Because if they're in a negative game script, they're sure as hell not going to run it with Monty. If anything, they'll run it with Herbert, who has much bigger chance of hitting a big play on the ground. Monty's been 3 yards in a cloud of dust, getting there on volume alone. And in a negative game script, I'm really afraid of hitting the over on that one, even though it's a pretty good number. I do respect the fact that that's a very low number for a lead back to hit.
Well, and I think if you look at the only reason I'm more comfortable with it, Bo, because I'm afraid of it too a little bit, but the reason I'm more comfortable with it is there's really a few circumstances where the Bears have been playing from a positive game script. And this is what Montgomery has done, 4 out of the 5 games he's been healthy. So I just don't see that changing a lot. And to be quite frank, I mean, Claypool's not going to be up and running. They're already saying he's getting somewhere between 10 and 25 snaps. Who knows what the hell that means? And so
they like to lie. That's just a smoke screen.
Sure it is, but I think they have a limited functionality in their passing attack to begin with. And so I like this to be a little more isolated attack between Montgomery and Herbert. So.
And I think the key here is, Connor, is that David Montgomery is averaging 15 carries per game in all the games he's been healthy. So when you factor that in, I mean, he realistically only needs to rush for 3.5 yards to make that line count. So I think that's what you're betting on. Can he get 3.5 yards per carry? Bo's not so sure. I'm a little bit mixed, but I still have some belief in my guy Monty there. Connor, hit us with your final one, please.
Same game, obviously. Raheem Mostert rushing prop, 64.5 over under. I am again going to take the over on that one.
Oh, wow. Okay. Bo, how do you feel about that one? He's got a little bit of company now. Former 49ers back Jeff Wilson joins the fold there in Miami. So are you thinking without Chase Edmonds and maybe with Jeff Wilson not getting up to speed, do you think this could be a nice line for Connor here?
Yeah, I think it's a great line regardless, because Jeff Wilson was just sent there to replace Chase Edmonds, who with his 30-40% of the touches, Mostert wasn't the bell cow here. He got most of the touches, but he also did way more with them than Edmonds did. Edmonds all of a sudden forgot how to play football, and that's why he's not a Dolphin anymore. Jeff Wilson is, of course, already up to speed because Mike McDaniel was the running game coordinator for the 49ers with both of these guys.
Yes.
So there is no learning curve there. They know exactly what their job is. And Mostert's still the lead of this committee. 65% of the touches will go to him. And he's got the big play threat, man. This Dolphins team. They know how to run the football. They know how to throw the football. They're good at. Mike McDaniel is the next Sean McVay. He is the smartest head coach in the NFL right now. We're talking Ivy League educated, spent his entire life in the game. There is no doubt in my mind that Mike McDaniel can get this offense humming against an awful defense like this. And the running game, I'm not worried about anything if it's running, passing, I'm hitting the over on all the Dolphins until they face the Bills or something, where it's like, oh, the defense across from them is an actual challenge. You should hit all the overs here. I'm not saying they might get in the end zone very much because of the weather and because that's how it happens is you bet on guys to score touchdowns in an obvious smash spot and they won't do it for you. But yards wise, I'm fully confident any Dolphins player you have, I'm hitting the over.
And Connor, what was that line one more time, please?
64.5. And I was looking at his average results as of the last 5 games. And this is, again, right there, kind of Montgomery territory where he's getting 14, 15 touches a game. He's averaging somewhere in the neighborhood, I'm just doing rough math, of about 62 yards over the last 5 games. So I don't think it's an absurd stretch to get another 3 yards out of him. And I do think he might be used slightly more, probably getting closer to like 16 to 18 touches.
Yeah, he's hit 64 rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. So not quite the number, but very close. And yeah, I like what you're throwing out there, Connor. He's attacking that windy game in Chicago. But I want to move to you. Do you have any props that you're also attacking or that people should be considering today?
I've actually been right in line with Connor. Like, he's overlapped a lot of my plays, so we'll just stick with what he's got because I'm not really in too much disagreement today, which is shocking.
Wow.
We'll save that for the DFS portion.
Best friends, the 3 best friends anyone could have, baby. Guys, let's go
Never,
ahead.
Ever leave each other.
Let's go ahead and tear it up here with the DFS in King of the Crop.
Better not miss.
You better not miss, and we do not miss on this show. Connor, we've been hot the last couple weeks, man. I think we hit some of the slate breakers last week with Donta Foreman and a couple of those other guys. How are you feeling about it today?
Good, but I think that it's a lot of the plays that are going to be different than what pretty much everybody else on the planet is going to want to play are going to be a little dicey. So I think we're going to be able to hit some good ones this week, but I think some of these pivot plays or leverage plays are going to be a little touch and go.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start at the quarterback position, gentlemen. 8,500 for Mr. Joshua Allen at the Jets. Kyler Murray comes in at 7,400. Justin Herbert, Tua, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins. I love all those plays. How do you feel about the top of the slate here? Also, if you want to kind of factor in that group, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, I think they kind of round out that top tier in a smaller slate here. Rodgers all the way down at 5,900. As I mentioned, Josh Allen up at 8,500. Bo, where do you lean here playing quarterback? Are you going to pay up or are you going to pay down for one of these, risky yet appealing options?
So I'm mostly paying down this week. I do have a good sprinkling of Joe Burrow. This is a leverage spot for me is people all of a sudden we see them get absolutely torched by Cleveland on Halloween night, Monday Night Football, and everybody's off the Bengals. Yep. Well, I like when that happens because he's already marked up a little bit to relieve some chalk because you get that Monday night dark spot where the pricing has already come out. And so he's a little bit overpriced for what his performance was last week. And everybody's off him. Everybody's off T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. And I love it. I love it. Give me all the Joe Burrow and T. Higgins stacks I can muster because at the end of the day, if nobody has them and they have the same beautiful upside that they always did against Carolina, who is awful on the back end. We're talking terrible outside corners. They have a strong linebacking core. They have a strong front four where you kind of worry about sacks. But again, I'm not worried about somebody out there covering T. Higgins. So I'm going to load up on Burrow and T. Higgins and hope that he goes for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. Hopefully both of them to T. Higgins. That'd be great because T. Higgins, as far as what metrics I'm looking at, is the most optimal leverage play on the slate of any position.
Okay. And, I think the one thing to keep in mind here with Joe Burrow that Bo, you touched on is Burrow has been great for DraftKings this year. As long as you didn't play him in prime time last week, he's averaging 24.7 DK points per game. That is by far and away the second best on this slate this weekend. So, Connor, are you following Bo's lead with following Joe Burrow there, or do you have some other plays you're also factoring in?
So, yeah, I like Burrow. The only thing that I would throw out there is the proud recipient of the target increase for Joe Burrow last week was not Higgins, not Boyd, but Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon actually led the team in targets at 9 targets last week. So I see the path to Higgins having a massive game, obviously, same way we thought, even a week ago. But the piece I like to play with Burrow, I think, is going to be Mixon. Mixon's been performing really well. It takes really the differentiator for Mixon almost breaking a slate is going to be one touchdown. The yardage is there, the receptions are there. Yep. So I like putting Mixon with Burrow.
Okay. Any pay down options here? Aaron Rodgers, I think, is a very good start this week. He's getting the Lions secondary, who outside of Jeff Okudah, awful. All quarterbacks have pretty much gone off against those guys. Kirk Cousins, I kind of touched on him a little bit earlier. I like him against Washington as well. He's been solid, super consistent, over 18 DK points per game. Do you guys have any interest in any of these options? I know they're not sexy. I know they're not glitz and glamour, but Bo, I think they might be able to get it done here for you, especially like Rodgers, man, down at 5,900. Gives you a lot of pivot options.
I love Rodgers this week. It's not as much of a leverage spot anymore because of the price. The price is super low for him. Anytime Rodgers is sub 6, he's going to be chalky. But weirdly, a lot of people must be running him naked because the receivers are not chalky. Aaron Jones is a little chalky. So you're seeing a lot of people pairing up Aaron Jones at 7,400 with Rodgers. I'm going to be looking at Lazard was just announced he's in today. Lazard's a great play. Romeo Dobbs is a great play. Robert Tonyan's a really good play. And of course, Jones is too. Like these receivers and running back, like I'm not thinking Dylan's much of a play until we see more out of him. But everybody else on this offense against Detroit, you're going full steam ahead because Detroit is the worst defense in the NFL. And that's a perfectly timed slump buster for the Packers because they haven't looked good this year against good teams. They've just played down to their competition. And I think they're going to come out and it's a must win for Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. And if I'm getting a Hall of Fame quarterback at a must win, I'm probably not going to go away from him because we've seen him go nuclear against Detroit too many times. I'm actually going to go even cheaper on my quarterback plays, but we'll get there.
Okay. Connor, any interest in A-Rod or Cousins, kind of anyone in that mid tier there?
I've got moderate interest in Cousins.
Of course you do.
Well, no, but the reason I even say moderate is I called it last week, and I think it's going to be a similar situation this week with the Dalvin Cook usage, which mitigates or
you did call that. Yep, that was a good call.
Or minimizes rather the amount of points that I think Cousins is capable of putting up. So do I think he has a floor around 20 points, which has been consistent? Yeah, but he is creeping up there in price to where 20 points ain't going to get it done. Rodgers, yes. Rodgers, I'm definitely going to sprinkle in some Rodgers. I like him with Dobbs. I especially think Aaron Jones is going to have a big game. I'm a little skittish of Tonyan just because he's been so up and down and he's not exactly cheap. There's some other tight ends that I want to mess with there. But getting right down a little bit from there, I surprisingly actually why I'm a little off of Cousins. I actually kind of like Heineke a little bit better in this situation. Yep. And for the reasons Bo highlighted earlier about the Vikings secondary, Heineke to McLaurin is already proving to be a pretty valuable stack, and it's cheap. I mean, it's cheap in comparison to most of the other stacks you can do. And it allows you, if you think Jefferson does have a big day, it does allow you to bring it back with Jefferson pretty comfortably. So Heineke, I think, is a pretty good value at $5,400. Surprising to say that, but
I agree. Averaging over 19 points per game, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, he's in my pool. He's definitely a valid play. I like it more to run just the wide receivers against each other in a skinny stack. Because my spend down at quarterback is Trevor Lawrence.
Yes, sir. Yep. That I also have a lot of Lawrence as well. Yeah.
DFS doesn't have to be hard, guys. We can get to optimal lineups by playing onslaught stacks against the worst defenses. And the Raiders defense is atrocious. Like the old quote I've been saying for years is that they can't cover a dead body with a tarp. So we're talking one of the worst secondaries in the NFL going up against a guy who's other than the last couple of weeks has been a top 10 quarterback in production. And Christian Kirk has been awesome against great, easy matchups. Like you get a team with bad slot corners. The Raiders have one of the worst slot corners in the NFL. And Christian Kirk is going to town. Evan Ingram, even though he's going to drop 7 passes today, he's going to get at least 10 targets. He's going to have at least 10 targets in this game. And if he scores a touchdown at 3,300, that's the nuts. Travis Etienne's been a revelation since they finally figured out that after 2 weeks that this guy's really good. And compared to James Robinson, he's way better. And so they shipped him off to the Jets, and Etienne is the show, and he is the show this week. Everybody's telling me it's too many Jaguars. Well, it's not too many Jaguars if they all score a crap ton of points.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we're in the part of the season where it's like full Raiders fade. Honestly, I'm fading their offense. I'm fading their defense. Like, I just don't like what they're doing out there in Las Vegas. And I mean, it's a bummer, guys, because I mean, we had such high expectations for this team in general.
Well, I didn't, but at least they still fell short of them. It's like all I thought was that they would feed Davante Adams. In the first game, they did 17 targets the first game. Where has that been? It's gone. Josh McDaniels galaxy braining himself into having a horrible football team is not what was on my bingo card, where you're giving Mac Hollins twice as many targets as Davante Adams, and you're also giving Foster Moreau in the same game also twice as many targets as Davante Adams. That's stupid. That's not just bad coaching. That's stupidity. And Davante Adams is still one of the best NFL wide receivers right now going, and he is wide open. You watch the tape. This guy is running by himself, leaving guys into the shadow realm, and Derek Carr is just double clutch, sit there and wait, dump it off to Moreau, dump it off to Hollins, dump it off to Jacobs. Davante's like, hey, hello, please throw me the ball. And Derek Carr is awful. He looks terrible. And so, yes, a full onslaught. I'll take the Jags defense in this game. Who cares? This is going to be a blowout. I think the Jags win by at least 10.
So, Bo, you like this game, huh?
Love it.
So
full fade on the Raiders. The Raiders are dumpster fire this year.
Someone has to get to 3 wins this weekend. Bo's calling it on the Jaguars instead of the Raiders. Guys, let's move over to the running back discussion now. Austin Eckler, no doubt about it, comes in here at 8,800, top of the running back board. Connor's guy, Dalvin Cook, 7,800 for him as well. Kind of not a super sexy slate after that. Aaron Jones, 7,400. Jacobs, Fournette. Mixon, as you kind of pointed out, Connor, he's coming in 6,500. That's kind of a nice number, I think, for him. But getting down a little bit, I think, is really where the value is here, guys. ETN, 6,300. Why is DraftKings not adjusting for ETN or Kenneth Walker here? Like, Kenneth Walker continues to be a bargain every single week. He continues to deliver every single week. Bo, how are you feeling about this running back slate? Are you paying up for any of these top options, or are you going into this middle group where there's so many good options between Foreman, Stevenson, Walker, Travis Etienne? Because that's where I want to lay my coin.
Right, and there's kind of two schools of thoughts on running back. It's you can get the best value, which is Etienne, Ramondre, those guys. Like Kenneth Walker hasn't gone up because he doesn't catch passes, and really Etienne doesn't either. Etienne getting 3-4 targets a game is a far cry from what everybody thought he was in the preseason. So these upper echelon backs are the guys that are getting 5, 6, 7, 8 targets a game. Austin Eckler is getting 10 a game. There's a reason why he's up there. And the best leverage running back on the slate is Austin Eckler, followed by Joe Mixon. So if I'm spending up on those guys that are getting tons of passing down work. And ETN is kind of in that next tier for me. But he and Stevenson as optimal plays in that 6K range are very chalky. So if you're not the kind of guy that likes to roster chalky running backs, I don't mind it because I like to get different with my stacks. And so I have a lot of those guys too, because they are optimally priced for their production expected. But if I'm just saying, hey, I want to run a chalky stack out there, I'm going to throw Austin Eckler in there because the dude is just scoring tons of fantasy points, especially on DK where it's full PPR plus the yardage bonuses. It's a no-brainer, and nobody's going to have Austin Eckler. Was it come at 3-4% rostered expected this week? I don't mind spending up for that one bit for the RB1, guys. Don't overthink it. The guy's going into a really good matchup, and there's nobody else to throw the ball to in LA.
That's a great point. Yeah, they're definitely depleted as pass catchers there in Los Angeles. Connor, how do you feel about this slate of running backs? Are you paying up for Eckler like Bo suggested, or are you going to take some of these chalkier mid-value plays?
100%. I'm playing Eckler. Eckler and Mixon are probably my two most rostered. and a close third is Dalvin Cook. I am playing some of those middle tier guys that Bo alluded to, but they are absolute. I mean, a block of chalk. I mean, it's so
30+%.
Yeah, and to your point, Seth, and the reason I think that they are what they are is because DraftKings hasn't adjusted pricing really for them. Objectively, out of that mix, I probably lean Stevenson over ETN. I just like the matchup just a little bit better. Not that Las Vegas sucks, but I just like I think Stevenson is probably in line to have a bigger day because I do think that Trevor Lawrence is gonna sling the rock around quite a bit. And so I just don't know if the usage goes up, stays the same, goes down for ETN, and for something that's going to be so chalky, I'd rather skip it. Walker I like, but again, to Bo's point, it's a low reception proposition for you. So I probably at the top is where I am going to spend some money, and actually it kind of mitigates some of the stress that you got to put yourself through trying to figure out what wide receiver to play in the upper echelon because you can't afford it if you got Eckler.
Yep.
Okay. I want to go down into the 5,000 and below, or 6,000 below range here, guys. There is a couple intriguing plays. It depends how ballsy you want to get this week. Cordell Patterson, he's back. James Conner, he's likely back. But I want to touch on Jamal Williams because I think he is a smash this week. Revenge game against the Green Bay Packers. And guys, Jamal Williams has been brilliant. We haven't talked about him much on this show. We haven't talked about him much on any of our shows this year. But he's second in the league in rushing touchdown with 8, only behind Nick Chubb. He's 15th in rushing yards right now. And he's outperforming players like JT, like Joe Mixon, like Najee Harris. There's no TJ Hawkinson now. So I think there's going to be an opening in targets for Jamal Williams. He's coming off 3 receptions, 23 yards, his highest total of the season. So I really like what he's been doing. And the Packers, they've allowed the second most rushing yards to teams right now with 977, about $1.20 per game. I think Williams, with Swift still kind of banged up, I think he's a smash start, and I don't think he's going to be as chalky as the rest of these plays around that range. How do you guys feel about it?
Well, Cordell Patterson is a full go, a full send. This is an awful run defense that the Chargers have on this other side. So where the Chargers are favored in this game, it's not going to be that type of game because we can make fun of Arthur Smith all we want for running the ball down 3 scores. But this is the exact type of game where that strategy works, where he's going to run the piss out of the ball. And Patterson being back actually unlocks their passing game a little bit more because that was the reason they went to that whole strategy in the first place, because they saw what their backfield was. There's a couple sledgehammers with Algier and Huntley. They didn't have any scat backs to run those little swing routes very well. Cordell Patterson unlocks the passing game for Atlanta, but they're still going to run a ton of plays. They're still going to run the ball a lot, 65% of the time against a weak front for the Chargers to keep Justin Herbert off the field. It makes perfect sense that the Arthur Smith strategy that he doesn't seem to want to waver from, well, it actually works sometimes. It works when you got a team that can't stop the run. They're going to run it all over this Chargers defense, and Cordell Patterson is going to get probably 10, 15 touches rolling off the IR. But I think with that amount of volume, especially with the receiving volume that he's going to add in, and the fact that Arthur Smith loves to feature Cordell Patterson in that offense, this is going to be a huge upside spot for me at 5,800 with Cordell. He's one of my favorite leverage plays on the slate because I already knew back Wednesday when he was at practice, announced it as himself that he was back at practice. Breaking news, I'm back at practice. And he was jogging out there almost full speed to the practice field. It's like, this guy's full go. There's no way they're not going to activate him if he's already practicing in full on Wednesday. This guy's ready to go. So I love Cordell Patterson this week. And then one other play in that range, it's kind of controversial, but Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson every single week outplays his price. Every single week he stays in the mid-5s. Every single week everybody's like, oh no, they don't give the ball to Gibson enough. Yeah. And every single week the guy puts up 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown and hits value for you. Keep playing Antonio Gibson. Ride that horse until he gives up. And there's no McKissick this week, so Brian Robinson's going to run into the back of his lineup 20 times for 14 yards. That's what Robinson does. He just runs straight ahead and falls down. And then Gibson will turn his 15 touches into 150 yards and a touchdown. And they'll be like, well, Robinson's still our starter. It doesn't matter. Starting running back doesn't matter. Gibson is the star of that team, and he's in a very nice spot this week.
Okay. Connor, how do you feel about Gibson, Jamal Williams, anyone else kind of in this sub 6,000 tier?
Patterson for sure, and in a game that is expected to have the highest point total on the slate, yeah, I'm definitely in on Patterson, and I think that's a nice counterpoint to the Eckler take too. So, and you put those two in a lineup, I think that's a pretty reasonable pay for running backs. I'm probably out on Williams, not knowing the extent of Swift and all that. And on top of that, I don't. Detroit has just been so up and down for me that it's hard.
Bug me.
What's up?
They bug me.
Yeah, I beat the drum for certain Detroit players every couple of weeks, and they just screw me. So I'm probably going to pass. I don't know what the mix is going to be out of that backfield.
You can't go with the revenge game narrative, baby. You can't follow that.
You said something earlier, Seth. You said Jamal Williams has been good. He's only been good as a vulture. He's been vulturing touchdowns all season long.
Top 15 in rushing yards, dude. Like he's been.
Because Swift has been out, and you give Dan Campbell has got a playbook that's looks like he tore it off the side of a crayon box, and it's like a run left, run right, run middle, and that's all he does. It's I just don't see it. The Packers are going to be running well ahead this game. Takes Jamal Williams out of the game. So unless he scores 2 touchdowns again, I'm not going to want to play him in that price range. And I have guys who actually catch passes in that same price range.
Hey, he got 3 passes last week. Hey, he's getting there. Go TJ Hawkinson, baby. Swift.
Look at Seth coming with some fire. Let's go.
I'm just
Seth.
saying,
Get him.
I'm just saying, don't be attacking Jamal Williams. He's the heart and soul of that team.
Oh, I love the guy to death, but he's on the wrong team.
All right. Well, Connor, what other running back plays do you have? A little less controversial, maybe.
The only one that I might throw out, and it's not because it's a stellar situation, it's just because there's not another soul left on this team, is I probably will play some Foreman again, and he'll probably be some chalk from last week. But I think it's warranted. He looked good. They got nobody left. DJ Moore is not the answer. So as a pretty much the primary offensive piece that Carolina is going to have on the field in a game that they're going to be behind in, I like Foreman again this week at 6K. So I think we can.
Surprisingly not that chalky. Etienne and Stevenson are eating the whole chalk bomb for us.
You know from playing DraftKings, as long as you have, that the reason that chalk happens, especially when the general public gets involved, is they see the red 6 next to Foreman's name. Like, oh no, can't play that. It's
Reds, a red 6 and then a $6,000 price tag for a journeyman running back. So not chalky, still a great play. Can we get into value running backs? Because I got quite a few.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to get into that discussion by bringing up this comment here from our guy, Tim Welch. Bo, I'm very sorry about Taylor being out. Just mainly now, what do you and Connor argue about? And this will be
it's coming into right now.
Yep. So let's
I think they call that a segue in the biz. Well done.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Transition.
We appreciate you, Tim. So let's talk about it, guys, because the elephant in the room, we're bearing the lead, but it's Deion Jackson, 5,200. He was stellar, 10 targets, 10 receptions last time out here as the Colts starter. But that was a different quarterback. That was Matt Ryan. Sam Ehlinger not as willing to dump it off. He's got a little bit of wheels out of Texas there. Bo, I'll turn it to you first, my friend. How do you feel about Deion Jackson? Is the chalk going to be too much, 5,200? Is the matchup? We're seeing it against New England. You get that little red 2 next to him. So how do you feel about it here? Deion Jackson in place of the once great Jonathan Taylor.
This is the chalk you never, ever, ever. It is the poison pill. And Connor's muted, but I already know what he's saying. The poison pill of chalk is a guy who did great with one game in a perfect matchup with a quarterback who loves to dump the ball down and had the full backfield to himself. Well, the only thing that's comparable to that game for this game is that he has the backfield to himself. Deion Jackson has the backfield to himself, but it's against a really, really tough front seven for New England. Number 2, that red 2 means a lot. If it's Bill Belichick and he's looking at this team saying, well, I don't have to worry about Sam Ehlinger beating me because he sucks. And I don't have to, all I have to focus on is covering Michael Pittman, bracketing Michael Pittman, and stopping the run. And Deion Jackson is not special, guys. He played a horrendous defense when he went off in that game. And we're talking about the complete opposite with a quarterback who doesn't dump the ball down because he's always scrambling around looking for picks to throw and fumbles to make. This Sam Ehlinger is awful, guys. He was awful at Texas. I don't know what the appeal is for him even in being on an NFL roster, let alone starting in the NFL over Matt Ryan. It's a travesty. And I think the Belichick is going to shut this entire operation down. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts fail to score a single point today.
Okay. Connor, how are you feeling kind of about Jackson here? Because he's obviously a player. He was great in his last time out. Bo's saying it's a little bit of a bluff. Are you feeling any more confident in him?
No, I'm not. And I think if I got to play something on the indie side, it's probably some of the lower tier, lower cost wide receiver pieces. And I don't even necessarily want to do that, but I'm definitely not probably playing much of Deion. I will say too, if you want to call them value plays, I don't even know if there's much value, but if I were going to, I'd probably be in that more $5,500 range. Bo already hit on Gibson. I'm not as big a believer as Bo is, but I think that at 5,500, that's sleddable. And then Michael Carter, James Robinson, completely up in the air. I would be very surprised if they put him on the field. So I think Michael Carter, in a game where they're going to be behind a guy who's garnering a ton of targets, I think Michael Carter at $5,500 does have some upside to him, albeit limited. But if you've got to pay down, that's probably the pay down option I'm going to.
Okay. Bo, any final thoughts on running backs here? Any final value plays that you might have?
Rashad White, 4,700. Leonard Fournette's been pretty inefficient. They've been kind of moderating his workload every other game. And last game, he got a full workload. The game before that was on a short week, and Rashad White got a way more usage. I think that's what they're doing is they're alternating weeks with Fournette getting a full workload followed by a half workload. So this is a Rashad White week. And against the Rams, I think the Bucs are favored in this game. Even though both teams have been a massive disappointment, the last 2 Super Bowl winners are both coming into this game with a losing record. Yeah. I do think that the weapons for the Bucs are a little too much for this Rams defense, and I think that Rashad White is involved in the passing game here from Tom Brady, and that should spell pretty good volume. It's what we're looking for is a cheap running back that catches passes in an offense that likes to throw the ball a lot. So that's kind of my thinking there is 4,700. You just need something out of it. Double digits, 15 points. You might get lucky and have the guy score a touchdown. But I'm just throwing that out there as Rashad White is due for more of a spike week because of that. What looks to be a pretty clear pattern of Fournette usage.
Okay. And Connor, let's go ahead and move forward here. 2 wide receivers, and I'll hand it off to you first. This is a very cloudy wide receiver top of the tier here, guys. Cooper Kupp coming off the injury, 8,900. I don't know how I feel about him. Justin Jefferson, obviously, he's always a go here at 8,600. But Tyreek Hill, Bo kind of pointed out the weather could be a factor there in Chicago, 8,500. Stephon Diggs, I don't think there's any question about him returning value at 8,400. But Devonta Adams, I'm not touching him at 8,100 with his usage as of late. So how are you feeling about this top of the tier? I guess we can throw DeAndre Hopkins in there at 7,900 to kind of round out this top tier. Connor, are you paying up this week, or are you going to be looking elsewhere for your wide receiver action?
It's weird, right? Because I already talked about running back, and I really, really, really want to play Austin Eckler, and I really, really, really want to play Joe Mixon. And for me to do those 2 things, it's pretty hard. I've been building the lineup while we've been talking. It's pretty hard to get a top tier guy in there. Yes. You can do it, but you gotta gamble a little bit. So that all that being said, Jefferson obviously is a great play. I think that I really want to go down to Diggs though. Diggs against a really soft Jets zone. I think Diggs is just gonna destroy the Jets today.
Ooh.
It's Diggs has been the most consistent, I think, out of all these wide receivers. So I think that's what Connor's betting on here, Bo. Are you taking that consistency with Diggs at the top, or are you treading elsewhere?
I'm full fading the outside receivers for the Bills. You know why? Because Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed Jr. are the best cornerback tandem in the NFL, and we're talking about man-to-man coverage here. Man-to-man coverage, Sauce Gardner has given up 26.
When have they played man-to-man in the last 4 weeks? Like, I'm curious because
the Jets run it a lot.
They don't move around, and Diggs.
No, they don't. They don't travel. So unless they move Diggs into the slot where the Jets can be had, I think that they're gonna have a long day. And because this is exactly where you look into is like, oh yeah, Diggs is great. Diggs does everything right. Diggs gets into good matchups and he still performs. This is the kind of the stopping point for me. And DFS at this price point, the upside is greater for the players around him. And I'm definitely paying homage to these two great corners for the Jets because that's really all they have to work with on the defensive end is that they can shut down outside receivers. And they've done it all season long. That being said, I still have some Diggs. I still have some Allen because I'm not an idiot. I'm not full fading the Buffalo Bills offense. I'd be really stupid. But I'm going down to Hopkins. Hopkins is a more optimal play here. Since he's come back, he's averaged 30 PPR points a game. He is going to be chalky, but if you're doing a game stack with this game between Seattle and Arizona, you're not worried about chalk. You're looking at upside. And DeAndre Hopkins with either a Geno Smith stack or a Kyler Murray stack looks really good to me if I'm spending down at running back to get to a top wide receiver. I'm doing it with Hopkins, and I'm doing it with a couple other guys that are a little bit lower.
Okay. Yeah, Bo, take us through that because this next tier, it's still dicey. It's T. Higgins, 7,300. It's Mike Evans, 7,200. Gabe Davis, 6,900. And then Michael Pittman, who I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole here at 6,800. So who are these more conservative plays at wide receiver that you're willing to pay for, Bo?
So that's kind of the thing is you can go down to, I mean, I don't hate Pittman. Pittman is the only show in town on that Indy offense, and he's getting volume from Ellinger. It's not very good volume, but he's still a bit overpriced, which means he's not chalky. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's like I can't get enough of Amon-Ra, and I'm going down a little bit further already, but it should be noted that there's no earthly reason why Amon-Ra St. Brown should be under $7K ever. And here he is going up against the Packers secondary, which they're not going to stop him.
Joe Barry doesn't know what he's doing over there. He's not having Jair Alexander shadow anyone this season. Like they've kind of lost faith in Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator over there for the Packers. So I agree with you on that. Connor, we touched on it a lot this season that these cornerback trio for the Packers should have been one of the best in the league. Eric Stokes gets benched last week. It's just kind of getting ugly out there. So are you with Bo here that you will be attacking Amon-Ra St. Brown against this Green Bay secondary?
I wouldn't say attacking. I am going to have him, but there's other games that I'd rather have parts of. Like to Bo's point, like I'm incredibly heavy on Hopkins. It's undeniable what he's done since he's been back. Seattle, I think, is getting a little more credit on the defense than maybe what they deserve. So I like Hopkins a lot. And in that, kind of getting down in that range a little bit, though, like I still like plays like Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, even, who's getting a ton of volume, just in better, what I perceive to be better situations that have produced more consistent outcomes.
Yeah, okay. And I'm just talking about like compared to Diggs, I have way more Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Terry McLaurin and T. Higgins. I have so much T. Higgins because he's set in such a leverage spot, and that's really what I'm looking for. Is if I'm stacking, I'm doing it to be different. I'm doing it to get upside that nobody else is going to have. Because I have a feeling that when I put these running backs in that I really like Etienne and Stevenson, is you're going to have a whole gaggle of people who are doing the exact same thing. So I'm throwing those Jaguar stacks out there. I'm throwing those Dolphins double stacks out there because the weather is getting bad. It's like, oh, well, to Connor's point earlier, it's the dip and dunk yak yardage that they've been getting all year. is way over the heads of most people because they're not watching the games. They're just saying, oh, they got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They're bombing it out there. And it's like, no, they're really not. They're running timing routes. This is a West Coast offense. They're just running a bunch of slants and double moves and getting defenses to respect every blade of grass. So I just in that range, I'm thinking more upside for the Dolphins, even in the weather. And then T. Higgins. I have so much T. Higgins and DeAndre Hopkins. It's not even funny.
Okay. Well, guys, let's go ahead and round out this wide receiver discussion. Let's just go around the room quickly once. Does anyone have any value plays they're looking at? I'll start us off here with Garrett Wilson. I like what he's doing at 4,800. I mean, guys, there's no Breece Hall. So that caps what this offense can probably do. Yeah, I know. I just wrote a whole column this week, life after Breece. Because
I know. I cried. It made me cry.
That.
I am the kiss of death, man. The first week I give him my stamp of approval, injured, out for season. Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
No Corey Davis this week as well. He's banged up. And Elijah Moore, he's not a factor in this offense. So Garrett Wilson is the only show in town right now for the New York Jets. And I think this is a vulnerable Bills secondary right now compared to what they could be. I mean, but Bo, you're shaking your head, but Tre'Davious White, he's out still. Jordan Poyer, he's going to be inactive with the elbow again. Dane Jackson, Taron Johnson, and Kaiir Elam, like they're not inspiring. Like they're young, inexperienced cornerbacks that I can't trust to cover Garrett Wilson and company. Right now, this unit has allowed the 10th most PPR points to opposing wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. 15.3 yards per reception. So I think Garrett Wilson is going to go out there. I think he's going to eat this week. I like him as that only show in town for the New York Jets.
I agree on Wilson. I just think that it doesn't matter how open a guy gets if your quarterback is Zach Wilson. That's all I gotta say. Garrett Wilson's awesome. I have lots of Garrett Wilson. I'm just praying to the gods that Zach Wilson can throw an accurate pass to him, or a few of them would be nice. My value play is Christian Kirk.
I think because I think they're going to be down.
Yeah, Christian Kirk. Part of the Jaguars onslaught. Christian Kirk 5,500. That's just a ridiculously low price for a guy who, against every bad slot corner he's faced, has gone for 20 points. So I'm going to load up on Christian Kirk with or without a Trevor Lawrence stack. That for me, that's one of my core plays.
Okay, Connor, who is your value play here at wide receiver we should be thinking about?
I like a lot of the ones you guys just threw out. And this one, Bo, I'm just going to try and block Bo out of my periphery here. But a guy that I am throwing a dart at $3,300 is De'Ami Brown in that Minnesota-Washington game.
Okay. So he just wants a bomb to be dropped. He's like, hey, we don't need to sell the team. We just need to drop a bomb on them. And everybody knows De'Ami Brown's good for that.
Well, he is, and when they've had some injuries and some thinning at the wide receiver position, he's gotten some looks. Like I think in a few of his games, he's had upwards of 4 targets. He's got a 100-yard game in there off of a single, I think, 76-yard bomb. I'm not saying that this is a great play. I'm just saying some of these crazy stacks that we've talked about today, and me throwing out there in the very beginning of the show that you need some weirdness in your lineup. De'Ami Brown is a guy under 4K that actually has a chance to catch some passes for you today against a Vikings secondary that I think is a bit of a fraud. So
speed. Okay. I actually do agree with you because there's one thing that I know the Vikings cannot cover because they haven't done it all year, and that's speed. Terry McLaurin against Pat Pete. Pat Pete used to run a 4-3. That's long gone. That hasn't been in 5-6 years. Pat Pete against speed receivers, he's getting torched. And Terry McLaurin's still a 4-3 guy. De'Ami Brown, 4-3 guy. On the other side of the ball, running verts against Dantzler, who runs about a 4-8. Dantzler's awful. Can't cover a dead body with a tarp. I'll say it again. Dantzler is one of the worst corners I've ever seen play football.
He's a little bit of a bust, in my opinion, honestly. I think they paid a little bit too much for him.
Way too much. The guy was nothing before. I don't understand how his agent must be a spectacular best agent of all time, because there's no way in hell Dantzler deserved anywhere near that amount of money in free agency. But on this outside, somebody's gonna catch a long bomb from Heineke in this game, and it's probably gonna be a prayer hospital ball floating in the breeze. But I'll bank on the speed wide receivers on the outside for the Commanders over Dantzler or 87-year-old Patrick Peterson.
Okay. Patrick Peterson said he's not washed. That's what he said last week after
No,
taking
he's
it to the
right,
Vikings,
unless
so.
the guy runs fast.
Guys, let's go ahead and round it out here with the tight end discussion. And it's a mess at this position this week. Let's be honest. No Kelsey, no Andrews, and no George Kittle on this slate. So it is kind of a mess. Darren Waller's out once again. Bo, I'm not going to call you out, but I took Darren Waller with your backing in Scott Fishbowl this year, and it really burned me. So I appreciate your
I did too. He's been sitting on my bench all season. I'm still waiting for him to play.
I know.
In Scott Fishbowl scoring, you're looking at it going, oh wow, you load up on guys at that premium scoring, and he still hasn't seen the field in 5 weeks. It's just painful.
It is. And this slate is painful here too, guys. Zach Ertz comes in at number 1, 5,100. TJ Hawkinson with the Vikings now, 5,000. Kyle Pitts, Mike Gesicki. Like it's kind of a lot of junk. If you want to go down a little bit, I like Evan Ingram again here, 3,300. I think Bo's finally come around to the Evan Ingram train as well. He's appealing. And then what about Tyler Conklin as well? He comes out off a good game. He has the Bills this week, but he is going to be playing from behind. So some really good game script from him. Do you guys like Ingram? Do you like Conklin? Are you paying up here? Connor, I want to start with you.
Ingram, no. Or Ingram, yes. Rather, Conklin, no. And the big thing with Conklin is I think there's a large amount of recency bias here. Yes, he had 10 targets last week. And yes, he had 6 the week before. But prior to that, it was pretty abysmal. And I don't really love attacking the New York side of this game, really. I mean, honestly, I'm with you on Wilson, but that's about where it stops on the Jets side of the ball. Ingram, it's undeniable what he's been doing. Yes, Bo's correct. He's got some stone hands on him, but when you get the ball 72 times a game, eventually you catch one.
Right.
It's the only thing in Vegas that I have even a modicum of interest of playing is pivoting to Foster Moreau at $3,200 with Waller out. And it's gross and I hate it. It doesn't feel good. Disgusting. It doesn't feel good, but I am going to do it a little bit. But pay up. Yes. Ertz 100%. I'm going to have in my lineups. I love Ertz this week. And I'm actually going to play some Hawkinson, and it's based on some comments that some of the offensive players on the Vikings made earlier in the week that Hawkinson is going to be involved in this offense this weekend, and I like him as a red zone target. So Hawkinson, I think, has a pretty good upside, and I think he's going to be unpopular because people aren't going to want to play the new guy on the block.
Okay. Bo, how are you feeling about this tight end landscape? It is, as we mentioned, disgusting.
Ertz, Ingram, and my lock of the week at tight end, Gerald Everett. Big number 7 for the Chargers. Whenever Keenan Allen's been out, it's been Gerald Everett's show. The dude's a yak monster. He's a great route runner. He's a great athlete in space, and Justin Herbert loves throwing the ball to him. Gerald Everett, yes. 3,300 is not very highly owned either. That is your tight end lock of the week from me.
I like that. I like that play. No Mike Williams this week as well for the Chargers. They are thin. Let's round it out here with defense, fellas. Buffalo Bills, no doubt, they come in at 4,300. Patriots against those Colts, 4,100. And then Bengals against Carolina at 4,000. I know normally this group likes to pay down, so I think a couple of the really chalky pay down options, at least that I'm seeing, it's the Seattle Seahawks. But, man, I really like them at 2,500 against the Cardinals. They just played the Cardinals not too long ago here. They're averaging over 8 DK points per game. And at 2,500, I don't think you can go much wrong with that, Connor.
My highest owned defense. So, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I do have a few lineups that I paid up for the Vikes here. And the only reason that I'm doing that is Zadarius Smith is the NFL's leading sacker at 8.5 sacks so far this season. They are getting to the quarterback. So I do like them to get some sacks, get some points on the board. And I do like the Washington side of the ball to stay lower scoring too here. All of that being said, that increases the value of the Minnesota defense. I believe it's 3,500. So.
Is there a better linebacking core than the Minnesota Vikings guys? Jordan Hicks, Eric Hendricks, Danielle Hunter, and of course, as Connor mentioned, Zadarius Smith. I think that is such a solid linebacking core. So I really like that play there, Connor.
I'd say they're top 10. They're top 10 for sure.
I mean, they're just solid all the way through, I guess, is what I like. Yeah. Like I don't see one weak spot there. Bo, who are you paying for defense this week?
I got two defenses that are core plays for me. The Tampa Bay Bucks at 3K flat going against the Rams, who turn the ball over a lot. Stafford, especially. You smash that over half interception for Stafford every week, you're going to be in the positive pretty much all year. Tampa Bay is not as bad as the record suggests. They just haven't put it together and won games at the end. I think the Rams are pretty fraudulent this year because they have no running game and their offensive line is horrendous. So I'm going to bank on that really, really good front seven for the Bucks to get after Matthew Stafford this week. And then down at the bottom, same narrative, just a little bit less assuredness. The Carolina Panthers getting after Joe Burrow, where I they'll probably give up 25, 30 points in this game, but they're going to get sacks. They might turn him over a couple times for a cheap option down. I think second cheap is at 2,300. Really, there's nothing wrong with playing the Jets defense either, down at very bottom 2K, because they're playing pretty well. I mean, they are getting interceptions. They are forcing quarterbacks to make decisions. They're stopping the run okay. They're dirt cheap. 2,000, you can't really build a better lineup around a defense cheaper than that because there isn't one.
Awesome. Well, guys, I really appreciate all the insight. Oh, Connor, one more thought?
It has nothing to do with football, but I do want to throw out there our boy Scotty Scheffler is making a run. He's 8 under through 13. He's in second place right now. So
you love to see it.
Let's see it. Let's see it, buddy. Bring it home.
Well,
Come on,
guys,
Scotty.
Everyone tuning in today, we appreciate you. We thank you. This has been a really fun time. We hope you subscribe to the channel. We hope you come back and listen to more of our content. Again, continuing, we have Tuesdays and Fridays. We have our In-Between Fantasy Football podcast. I'm live with Nate Polvo and a variety of guests throughout the week. And not too long, and we'll have the 19th hole back as well. You guys do our DFS golf show, so excited to see that back. The Back Road, our NASCAR show, just concluded for the season, but a lot of great content to still come on the channel here. As far as this show, guys, this will become a Twitter Spaces after this week, Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. So follow us on Twitter at IBT_media. You can find all our great plays over there. Connor, Bo, this has been a tremendous time with you guys. We won't have to fight the hangovers too much anymore, but I'm sure we'll have a good time on Wednesday night.
Allegedly.
Yeah, you don't
picked
know
a lot safer time. Yeah, you picked a lot safer time, but I don't think you should be kink shaming a Wednesday night hangover.
There we go. Well, fellas, I appreciate it, guys. Follow them on Twitter at Bo McBigtime, at Conor Coughlin, or at Cough_DFS. We will see you guys very soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you.